Welcome to today's video. Today, we are working on a survey report. But what is that? Well, a survey report comprises the interpretation the author draws out after reviewing and analyzing data collected from different sources on a specific topic. Now, here, usually an author is going to pass a survey to different people. And after they collect all of the surveys, they will analyze all of the information they get, and that's what they are going to do the report on. Now, it is important to know that you should have a point that you want to make, or you want to get some conclusion for this. So there has to be a clear objective. Now, what do you think about tourism? Tourism good or bad? Why? Please think about this so we can discuss in class. Great, let's continue. Now, let's go to student book page 114, exercise B. Here, as you can see, we have some extracts from 2 articles in a student magazine. I want you to please pause the video, read this text, and complete the last sentence with your own idea. Remember to have this ready for your lesson. We're going to share. Okay, now that you finished, we're going to work on exercise C. We need to find 5 expressions that contrast ideas. We already have, however. Pause the video and find 5 more. Okay, you should have found although, despite, even though, nevertheless, instead of. So let's work on this. I need you to go to workbook page 80, exercise B. Here you have to read these 2 paragraphs. Circle the expressions that contrast ideas. You already have, however. Pause the video while you work on the rest. Okay, we're going to check in class. Now, how can we contrast ideas in writing? Well, just like we saw in one of the first units, we have many expressions. Here, for example, we have although and even though, and these expressions help us connect clauses. Basically, you have one sentence and you can start it with although, even though, the first clause, a comma, and then what you're contrasting with. Or you could start with the first clause, comma, although, even though, and then the second clause, that is the contrasting one. As you can tell, we have only one sentence here. Now, we can use despite or in spite of before noun phrases or ing forms. Similarly, we have only one sentence here. Despite, in spite of, your first clause with a noun phrase or an ing form, comma, the second clause, or the first clause, despite, in spite of, and then a noun phrase or an ing form. Now, we could use nevertheless, which works similarly to however. And here, basically, you're contrasting an idea in a previous sentence. So you would have a first idea, then nevertheless, comma, your second idea. But here the difference is that you have 2 sentences, not one. Now, let's go ahead and practice. Here, we're going to go to student book page 114, exercise D. We need to circle the correct expression to complete the sentences. For example, although or despite groups of tourists can be annoying, tourism is important to the local economy. In this case, it makes sense to use although, because even though you have a noun phrase, groups of tourists, you actually have a complete clause because it has a verb, can be annoying. Now pause the video and work on the rest. Then we're going to check. Let's see, number 2. You can still enjoy the sights in the city, in spite of, although, the crowds of tourists. In this case, as you can tell, we don't have a clause. We have just a noun phrase. So we're going to use in spite of. Tourism creates employment, even though, despite, Many of the jobs are low paid. Here, as you can see, we have a complete clause because we have nouns but we also have verbs. So we're going to use even though. Finally, tourism can damage the environment. Despite, nevertheless, resorts are still being developed. Since you have two separate sentences, we're going to use nevertheless. Did you get this right? Perfect. Now, let's go to workbook page 80, exercise C. Here, you're going to correct the mistakes in the sentences from survey articles. You need to change the expression in bold, or the punctuation, or maybe even both. Please notice that there may be more than one correct answer. Look at the example. In spite of reviews are opinions, they are a useful source of information. As you can see, reviews are opinions. That is a clause, so we cannot use in spite of. That's why the correction could be although or even though reviews are opinions, they are a useful source of information. Let's do number 2. Despite reviews make restaurants busier, they ensure that general standards improve. If you see, we have a clause, right? We have a noun, but we also have a verb. So how could we correct this? In this case, I did this. Although, or even though, reviews make restaurants busier, they ensure that general standards improve. Did you have a similar idea? Great. Now pause the video and work on the rest, please. We're going to check in class. Okay, let's continue. Now, I need you to please prepare a Google form with 3 questions about tourism. Now, remember to have this ready for your